Let me tell you just briefly a little bit about my family for those they never seen me before. I was born and raised in Greece, and I never moved away from Greece until I married my husband. And he came back at 80s in Greece as a young missionary between college, trying to figure out that God has called him to ministry, so he wanted to test it, and God brought him to Greece. After college, before he goes on to become a minister, he said, I'll go to Greece for 4 years. 2 years to learn the language, 2 years to apply the language. I met him the third year, and he actually won me over with his Greek. He was cute at the time because he made mistakes like I still do in English, but that was the cute part. But also, my father's family has come to be born again back at 40s from missionaries. And that was my great uncle, and who has the history, Greeks being under the Turks, the Muslims, and occupied Greece for 400 years, but they never turned them to Muslims because their faith in God, it was strong. So through my father's bloodline, he had about 45 true priests believing in God. My great uncle was the first Greek-American missionary who went back, and he just brought them to the Lord. He did not change their faith, but he told them how to have Jesus into their heart. There's a nice story, I can take hours to say, but what I'm saying, I'm glad to be with you this morning. Mike and I have 3 daughters. Gina, who lives in England, married an English young man. So I have an English prince grandson. And his name is Jason Lucas. He just turned 3 months old, and there is a picture with him in the little video I will show you in a few minutes. Christiana lives in Indiana, and I thought when we moved to Greece in '97, she will be the child who will never go away from me. We walked out and she will hold my hand. She will not do anything. I can scare her pretty easy if I tell her something. Well, she lives all the way here when I'm over there, and she's doing really well, and she's happy. And then is Kali. Now, Kali, the third or the youngest one is they're more challenging. I call her my spicy girl. She was the one who always told me, I'm going to leave Greece. I'm going to go to America. I'm not coming back here. Guess what? She's there, and not only she's there, she has started up Mia Tribe, which is a co-op from working with different groups of vulnerable groups of people. And she worked in the past with human trafficking, especially try to get women out of that. And when you have a woman who comes out of that and wants a job, tell me what kind of a job she can do. Well, she trained them to do this freedom bracelet. She called them Freedom. She designed them, and it was something easy to make. And it calls Freedom because the way unbuckles is like you're coming out of any bondage you can have. And it's not only the sex trafficking women, there is all kind of abused women and abused people in general. So she taught them that. She helped them start making jewelry. And then, there is some funds from government that can help women like that to start a business. So when she moved to Thessaloniki, and that was the time we had the crisis with the refugees flooding Greece. What I would like to do is show you a little video about how our church is today. Actually, this morning they had 3 baptisms of 2 Syrian, father and daughter, and Moroccan lady, who, as I read, she's been wanted to get to know Jesus, and God has helped her be away from an abusive Muslim father and husband. And she was weeping when she said, I want to accept Jesus and I want to be baptized. So that happened this morning. It's already over, but they're 7 hours ahead of us. So they have been in my mind. The last couple months, we had about 9 other baptisms. And this is after 3 years working with refugees. Now, being a Muslim, I don't know how much you know about Muslims, But for me, I realized they're a lot like the Greek Orthodox. They're so grounded to whatever they believe, but they don't know Jesus Christ personally. So that has helped me as a Greek to understand more the Greek Orthodox people and have the same heart to pray for them as I pray for Muslims. That is not just the typical things and the faith they have into something, is to come that, and that's what I tell the Muslims anymore. It's not to change you from a Muslim to Christians, because Greece is full of Christians that they don't believe in God. But I want you to learn to have the God you believe will come alive in your heart. And He's the one who will change things in your heart. So you're going to get a little glimpse. Now, I grew up in a very traditional Greek church, just Greek people. The last 10 years have changed a lot because crisis had come into Greece financially. So about all our youth, 15 young people, moved out of Greece to get jobs. Older people passed away. A lot of them moved closer to the children, and 8 adults moved out of Greece to get jobs too. So it was always about 40, 50 people. So all of a sudden it went down, just people over the years, the last 10 years. And all of a sudden we experienced something else. Different nationalities start people coming to church. The first time I saw an African person walk in, I thought he got lost, because there is 10 Nigerian churches in Thessaloniki. What are they doing here? But God brought them, and then we have from Sri Lanka and Philippines. The biggest crowd of people we had was the Bulgarians, because they all came to work in Greece, and a lot of them were believers. So we had about 17 people, Bulgarians, and then we had Albanians. So it really, in a way, changed the church, but not as much, because they were still like European people. The last 3 years changed dramatically all the makeup of the church, and you'll see why. And as we work, we see people, we had teams that they come and they help us. And also, after church, because we have refugees come to church, we have a meal. We cook a meal for 60 people, and we all sit around and we eat together and get to know each other. So let's see the video. There is Mike in the front. Fill my heart with your compassion.
one day I was praying and asking God to find a way for me to get out and find a solution for myself. That night, Jesus appeared to me. A voice came and told me, let the church pray for you and your family and your son.
Jesus, my baby. I'm not the preacher. Mike is the pastor. I would say I'm the mother for people. And I heard that more from the refugees calling me, you're a mother to us. Now, I thought of my own mother, that she was always a mother to everybody. And I did like it, to think of me as my mother, that I was mother for people. And what does a mother does most of the time? She hugs her children, she can discipline, whatever, but most the child remembers from the mother is her hugs. And I'm pretty good at that. I like to hug people, especially the women that they have come into church that they don't feel that. As the kids have not grown up with hugs, they don't know many times to hug their own kids. I have 2 verses that I like to be up there. And what I would like this morning is to challenge you. Jesus says in Luke 6:27, he said, but I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Now, I'm thinking, who is my enemy? Who is your enemy? We don't have enemies, right? We're Christians and we love people, but we don't really have any enemies. And my enemies that I can think of, it's, when we moved to Greece in 97 and my kids went to the Greek school, the first thing they said when they came home, Mom, guess what? The Turks are enemies and we hate them. I go, wow, I thought of that growing up, but I never told them. What did they learn first day in school? And that was true. All the years that I have grew up is what the Turks have done down to my family and other families. It stays, but still, they're 500 miles away from me. I don't see them. I don't do anything with them. I heard horrible stories growing up, but I never really got to know them. Now, 3 years ago, when all this craziness started with all the refugees moving all over, first, they had to go through Greece to go to Europe. It was a big thing because every organization runs to every disaster that happens. Everybody's right there to help. So they all start coming, and because we have a guest house, we had all these teams come, and they will, and the borders, because they'll go through an island on a boat, they'll land on the islands, and from there they'll move them to Athens, and from Athens they'll get a bus and bring them to the borders, and then they will start walking by hundreds. It was a dirt road, and it still is a dirt road, where I never seen something like that, exchanging population with no papers, going from one country to another, just like that. So at a time, I was very busy. I thought, and now I'm thinking, what did I did 3 years ago in the church? I just don't remember. I was busy, like every pastor's wife is busy. So my husband, of course, he said, we need to help. And I said, we? Because we need to help. We can drive all those teams. They come to the borders just an hour away, leave them there to help. And I said, okay, you can do that. So he started driving, and I had a couple other people that will drive. And we take like 7, 8 people in the morning, and then you go back the afternoon and bring other people, and then you take them in the evening, other people. You can end up driving 6 hours a day back and forth, bringing teams. Well, eventually, they got so many at the borders. There were over 10,000 people in an empty lot with tents. Now, you see that on TV, but it doesn't really sink in. One day, he said, please, I need your help. I want you to drive this group to the borders because I don't have a driver and I can't do it. Oh, man, I felt like I was stuck. I didn't want to do it, but I said, okay, my plan is I get there, drop them off, turn around, and leave. But, curiosity of a woman. I got there, and I made the mistake to look. And he looked again, and I stopped, and I don't know how long I stayed there, but I just observed what was happening. All these thousands of people, children, living in the mud tents, just try to cook in a stove. The smoke goes up. It's just like, it didn't look good. All the way back, I felt guilty. Oh man, did I feel guilty. And from the guilty, I start to help. How many times we all will do something because we feel guilty? Not because we have love or compassion, but because we have to, or we really feel guilty. And that will be the way to feel better. That was happening to me. I felt really guilty. For a long time, I did things and I helped because I felt guilty. As the summer approached, and they moved them all to camps in the tents, we start opening the church like this, and you saw the church, and bringing people in up to 15 at a time in the 7 passenger seats. It was mostly kids and women and their husbands to take showers, clean your clothes, have them cook something, and just spend a few hours away from the tent. It's easy to do it as long as your heart is guarded, and you say, that's part of what I need to do as a pastor's wife and a lot of people. And I did it fine. I learned to live and put my guilt aside and just do things nicely. 2 years ago, we had Easter, and what we have done with the church is, since my mother passed away, my brothers didn't want to do Easter at home, the big meal. So I said, let's do it at the church. At a time, we have a couple families by themselves, so we all start eating together. Well, since then, it grew up to 70, 80 people we can get on Easter. So we grew a whole lamb, everybody brings stuff to join, and we have a great time. It's tiring, but it's nice. 2 years ago, we had 60 refugees that joined the church for Easter. Now imagine your door open and you see all these Muslims, especially all the women's covered up. They come and you kind of look next to you. Ugh. Just a different person you would think would be in church with you. But it was great because they all loved it. They were videotaping the sermon. We had a guy who preached in Arabic, English, and I translate in Greek. We did the worship. They laughed. They clapped. They all helped, and with the cooking, with the cleaning. Everybody went home, and all the church said, what a blessed day. Thank God, showing people God's love in this way, right? Okay, now next Sunday, the following Sunday, some of them start coming on by themselves to church. It was okay. After the 4th Sunday, they come up to Mike and go, a lot of people in the church, now are we going to do this every Sunday? He says, we're going to do what? He knew what they meant. So are we going to have all these refugees and the loud kids be in the church? Because at the time, we had on and off people, they did kids ministry. Nobody really wanted to do it. And you know how that goes. And that was the time we needed to make a decision. And for me, it was like, in a way, they're my enemies. Every time I saw a woman covered up, just what it reminds me, the Muslims and what they did to my family. And people start saying, no, we're going to get sick. They live in tents. You don't know what they're touching. They can touch you. They can touch my plate. They can touch whatever, my chair. They go to the bathroom. They're very good concerns. I start having them myself. And Mike points to me this verse and say, who do you need to love? Yeah, I love people. But I love it in my own terms. How that makes me feel comfortable. Right? But we had really to make a decision for that. And we stood and said to the church, this is what happen every Sunday. If they want to come, they're welcome. You know what happened? Half of the church almost left. The first to go, they were the Bulgarians. For me, were the most needy at a time, I would say. They took more advantage of the church people. But they were first to leave because they did not want to do anything. They didn't want to get sick from them. And then the Albanians, and then a family that they were like my own kids with Mike. And they have 2 young kids that 5 years they were in the church next to us in everything. Go in and out in my house. Move them after a whole year convincing the owner of the house across from my street. I still see them every morning when I go out. They left because the father did not want his kids to be around refugee kids. He never said it that openly, but what was you felt it. So up to down, after 3 years, I see them every morning. We talk. It's not the same. And I look down the road how much they have missed, really, learning to experience God's love. But you can't force on people to do something. So, and then there were just a lot of important people that left. And all of a sudden, we had a church with the unimportant people. You know, the Greek word hate in Greek means miso. But also there is another word in Greek, miso, that means half. Isn't that interesting? So we can hate, we can miso somebody who is half us. You know, we half them. They're not equal, like as good as we are, because of our knowledge, our money, our positions, our jobs. We're just better than the rest. So I have to say that I came to be in a church with half people. I mean, a lot of people in Greece, they don't like Nigerians. They don't like Chinese. They don't like anybody who is not Greek, okay? You know, if you see the Greek movie, there are 2 kinds of people, the Greeks and those that wish to be Greeks. And I thought, man, that's such a ego. But we do have an ego, as bad as the Jewish people, you know, just we're the best of everybody. And my problem is that all these smart people, they're stuck in Greece. That's why we have a crisis, because we're too many. So I start thinking, I have all these half people, because when the refugees start coming, they're like the Syrians. We saw a Pakistani. I have to say that I really struggle with the Pakistani population, because they're doing bad things. And it's just, God had to shut me up by sending me the beautiful family that I met her at this day center, that I go and volunteer. And many times I wonder why I go. But this is a way that I looked this last year, saved me to a person to be strong, learn to have compassion, and exercise my love every time. You know, there is a verse farther down, the other verse, that it says, love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, for he is kind to ungrateful and evil. Wow. I really have read that so many times that I never really synced in. Ungrateful and evil. You know, we've seen can you open it for me? I've seen the evil. We see that all the time, everywhere. But the one that we really may all of us experience is the gratefulness. How many of you can say, I can do it once, I can do it twice, I can do it 10 times, but I have my limits. Have you said it? I've done it. I know, and I've done it myself that I came to the point, but I hear it so many times people say, I've done it enough, I've been hurt, I'm stopping. I'm not doing it again. Can you identify with that? Now, you can be a very, sometimes it's a gift for people to be really to give. But for the rest of us that we're not in our nature to really give easily, it's a stretch. And that's what has been for me the last especially year, because most of my nicer refugees moved on. And there is all this new coming in because they move them, they put them in homes, they close the tents, the camps. And this last summer has a big flood of Turkey. They're just shoving them into Greece. I went with my scooter one morning, and there is a big square full of them. Like, where did they come from? They walked all the way. And they had to reopen all the camps and start putting them in there. And this time, it's not just the nice Syrians. They're Afghanistan. They're Moroccans. They're Algerians. There's a lot of them. They're men, single men, and a lot of them are dangerous. And the first thing you will do is you will protect yourself and your home. You don't want to do anything with that. You have areas here that you will not go because they're not protected. And I'm not going to tell you to go. I won't go either. I'm not a person like her daughter who goes on a mission trip. I'm not. But you know what? God brought them to me, right in front of me. It's like anywhere I go, it's just they're there. So it's not easy. And for me, when I think of a gratefulness, first of all, it was the Bulgarians that came. It wasn't like people outside of the church. There were people inside in the church. And most of us, our hurts as believers can be from the church and not from outside. Because from outside, we expect and we're lenient to that. That's how the people's behavior is. But to get it in the church, we put all the believers up there. But that's the mistake we do. My mother taught me one thing. When you go to church, you make sure you look straight up, because she was a new believer and went to church and thought everybody was saint. And boy, she realized that nobody was saint. You know what I mean. So she said, I had to learn to focus on God when I went to church and not what everybody did around me. And she told me that years ago. So all my years in the ministry, I learned that. It's easy for everybody to come and tell me what I'm doing wrong, but I can't tell anybody else if I don't like something. And I'm just to take it in. So a gratefulness for me has been more through this situation from people in the church surround me than refugees. And I have experienced more gratefulness from people like that are not even Christians. And I will tell you a couple stories about that. When one of the slides you've seen was 3 Muslim women with the lady in the middle holding the child. The one in the side, she had a miscarriage. She lost her baby, and she would not come out of her tent. I don't know who told her about the church, and the only place to get out of her tent is to come to our church. The first time she came in, I just saw that face, just such a sad face. I just let her go. She wanted to go help in the kitchen. And I just let her go. And I prayed that whatever she touched would be okay. There is things, it's out of our comfort zone. We can't always deal. But I just let her, prayed, and I let her. The church became her most loving place to come. One Sunday, the older lady in the middle is Mama Shula. She's the mother for everybody. She cooks. She's the main cook. She just made spaghetti. This lady went over, grabbed her hand, and kissed it, and said, thank you for cooking for us. Now, Shula is a person who He's been in the church since my father died, who stand next to me to help me for everything, for cooking, for whatever needs to be done. But I noticed her heart, it was guarded. You see, she has been so many times from her own family being hurt and not appreciate everything. Her whole life is there, but everybody, especially her family, took it for granted. That's her job, and she needs to do it. So never heard a thank you. So this lady comes and tells her, kiss her hand from respect. She just froze. She says, I don't think I can handle this gratefulness. Just too much. My own family doesn't thank me about anything. But that was what turned all that wall and take her down. Unless we position ourselves in a place to be ready to be open and open our hearts, because I tell you what, you can open your home. That's going to happen if your heart is open. You can give your money. I think Americans are the best to give. Anybody will give easier money than do something allowing the heart to be vulnerable. Because if you get hurt because somebody doesn't say thank you or doesn't show their appreciation, then, you really get offended. But how many times we offend him with our behavior? What he done for us? What are we giving him in return? Jesus says that, he gave us a promise that we're going to be sons and daughters of the highest, most highest God. And I don't know how we really understand that, how much we understand his passion and compassion for us. I don't. And after all these things that I'm doing, I still do not understand how much God loves me, because I have a hard time loving other people like that are different than me. I've changed my whole life. I lost friends. I had to make a choice. But you know what? God rewards you. It's a funny feeling how you feel. And I will tell you one thing, what talk to the Muslims, it doesn't say how good we preach to them. Is what we do that makes the difference. I want to share this story because it's very sweet. We had some people from Egypt that came as volunteers for translators. It was their last Sunday, and they were leaving, and what they wanted to do is wash the feet of everybody. So the girls were going to wash all the women, and the guys, the men's. And now there are all these refugees. Now, refugee feet in those days wasn't that clean. They live in tents. But they didn't care. So as we position, and I remember it's very humbling to see somebody trying to wash your feet. You think, are my nails clean? Are my feet is going to be smelly from the socks? Things. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. It's not a pedicure. It's really somebody washing your feet. But I remember this family from Syria that God has been working in their heart when she sat in that chair. And, I didn't realize that Egyptians and Syrians don't like, they're enemies. All these nationalities are enemies between them. And then Egyptian kneels down and washes her feet. She wept the whole time that girl washed her feet. For me, what it did to me, this is the kind of actions that they speak to people about God's love. Jesus did the same, but it's okay because he was Jesus to do it. But he left us an example. I want to challenge you this morning and tell you how much really you will position yourself knowing that there are people, because there got to be people in this county that you don't really like to be around. And you don't have to go far. You can say, oh, Maria, you're over there, you have refugees, we don't. But who will be the people who can sit next to you in the church that you really don't want? I know stories from people walking to church and good people left the church because they didn't want to be together in the church, because they didn't want to damage their kids. But the kids can be in public school and witness all kind of things, but not in the church. And I say that because I went through that. I felt I have them all week long. Do I need to see them on Sunday? But if they're going to settle in my country, my goal anymore is we fed them, we give them clothes, is need to tell them about Jesus. And a way to tell them about Jesus is to show them what Jesus did. For them, they believe in God who will punish them for everything they do. The women worth nothing, and they just don't get any affection. And teach them that God loves them. You show them how you show somebody you love, not by just saying it, but you hug them. How you going to be, how you are in the people that you really love. You show your love, right? Different ways. That's what God wants from us, and his heart is aching from that. He wants us to show our compassion, which is very little compared to his compassion. God has changed my life and my boundaries. I like to know what I'm doing, or I like to be safe. But God says, you need to get out of that box, and we hear that many times. But unless you position yourself in a place that you are going to get out of your box, you're just going to talk about it. You're never going to get out of that box. I have 3 daughters, and they're so different from one another. That's how all the people, we are different. As you saw, my church is not the same. Now, I love to sing in Greek. I don't anymore. I have to sing in English because none of them understand Greek. But we pick a song that we sing in English and sing the verse in Greek, and we add from time to time in Arabic. But now I have Farsi speaking, I have Pakistani speaking, I have Albanian, Arabic speaking. So we try to have meetings just for them with their music and just in their language, which is that's challenging too. But then on Sunday, we bring them together to learn to fellowship with each other. So it's been interesting to see. Iranians are kind pride too, like sitting with an Arab, I don't think so. Or sitting with a Pakistani, forget it. But my Nigerian people, they were the one who stood and embraced all the refugees, because most of them are political refugees or economical refugees. So they know how it is to feel that. As I close this morning, God gave you a promise to be his son and daughter. But if we do not obey his commandment, we're missing out of that promise. You have to think in your heart, like I do, and every day is a battle, how we show our love and how willing we are to position ourselves with people that we think they're half of what we are, or sometimes other people think we are not good enough for them. How we manage our heart. Do we keep our distance so we're safe, or we're exposed? Like Jesus opened up his arms and died. He exposed himself. When you open your arms, I see how you hug here. A little, And I can tell you, a Greek embrace, we don't embrace men. It's women and men, really hard hugs. So when I hug those women, it's like an energy going between us. We don't speak the language, but there is something, and that comes to me and goes to them, and that's the best way to show God's love. I want to thank you for having me this morning and for the support and prayer you give. But remember, I'm over there, but I'm a regular person like you. Every believer, God has them to have his own little yard of people to minister. We just have to open up and give it to God to that.